for those newcomers that haven't seen this channel before, my aim is just to provide help and support. And even if I can save you, a few £100s, that's going to be the difference between you smiling and being happy and me doing my job, right, of providing you some valuable content to help you along your self-building journey. So if you've been following along and watching the series from the beginning, obviously you'll know that I'm working with my family to take us through, full planning, building control, and then actually start projects. And we want to get hands-on, stuck in with doing some of the digging and helping out around the project. That's why I've been going to the gym. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, put these muscles to work, right? I don't think I've spoken about it, but just for those that haven't got a clue as to, what's involved in the building control process. Essentially, they're just like really, really detailed plans. And I'll show you an example of a second of what they look like. And essentially, it just gives that inner level of detail as to what exactly you're doing from a materials perspective, from a drainage perspective, from a foundation perspective, all the way up to complete your project. And there's specific milestones throughout your project that you need to sign off with this said authority, whether it's you're going down the private route or whether you're going down, the local authority route via the council. They'll send out a specific person in most cases to come and check at certain milestones of your project. And they're quite similar, because building projects are quite similar, right? That you start usually from within the ground, and then it's your job to make sure that they meet the relevant building regulations that are up to date and to current standard. It's also worth taking into consideration that the two entities, so how you get building control approved versus how you get planning permission approved, are completely two separate bodies. And if obviously, depending on the scale and the size of your project, and assuming you're doing a self-build as well, you're 100% going to need both bodies involved. It's not just a case of saying, yeah, I've got my planning permission, let me just crack on now, because you'll go down a rabbit hole on a road that you definitely don't want to be going down. You need to make sure that both bodies are aware and approve your approach to what exactly you're doing. So that, again, you don't have to, make massive changes and spend lots of money fixing things. Better to do it once, right, properly, than it is to do it multiple times and mess up. What did they say? There's a quote, it goes, measure twice and cut once. Yeah, that stayed with me. And it's quite relevant for this situation. The key resources that you're going to need for building control, from my experience, are an architect. Whether that's the same one you use for planning permission or not, it's totally up to you. And you're also going to need a structural engineer. Potentially drainage as well. In our project, drainage is a factor. So for our project, in terms of an architect and a structural engineer, we got our structural drawings done. Things to point out: for our project, we didn't actually need the structural engineer to physically come down to site. What we did was we asked the structural engineer what they'll need to know, and we would send them the measurements, etc., so that we save money. So that worked out quite well. So shout out to Stella, really good structural engineer, and I'll put a detail in the description below. You can get in touch with her. She's really, really good. And obviously you'll need an architect. So this part of the drawings is going to be a lot more expensive, and I'll try to show you the reasons why the drawings for the building control phase of your project are going to be a lot higher than the initial submission for planning perspective. It's just that, obviously, as I mentioned earlier in the video, the requirements that you need at planning permission stage are a lot more light touch at planning permission stage than they are at building control stage. So bear in mind that your cost for your drawings, etc., if you decide it all up front, make sure you factor in both, and that way you can get all your discount in one. Or you can do what we did and just get two separate people to do the two separate drawings, as you wish. One thing to note: make sure your architect and your structural engineer are closely aligned in relation to, or happy with, what it is you're trying to achieve. Because if your building control drawings by your architect are inaccurate, then it's going to have a knock-on impact to your structural engineer. So it's going to mean you're going to have to rework and redo drawings for a structural engineer, which is in turn going to cost you more money. So make sure that they are both on the same page so that that doesn't happen. And this is what I was talking about in my previous videos about transparency, making sure everyone's clear and happy with the approach that you're trying to take going forwards to minimize the amount of time delay, cost delay, and quality delay of your delivery. So let's just get into now showing you the difference between the original plan submitted for planning permission versus the plan submitted for the building control approval. These are the planning permission drawings that depict only the ground floor. The left side shows the current layout of the existing house, while the right side displays the proposed changes to the ground floor once the work is finished. Since there's around 30 documents in total, I'm only presenting the ground floor drawings for simplicity in this example, as we probably would need to have a separate episode to review all the documents. So just quickly, from the image on the right hand side of the proposed drawing, you can see quite clearly that, a big piece of work is going to be that wall, that party wall that centers the property. That needs to be built from scratch all the way up to the top of the house. So that's a major piece of work that will need to be carried out just from looking at this. You can also see, based on the neighbouring property on the right hand side of this drawing, their extension is longer than ours. So this is where before I was talking about precedence. Even though it's really long, we still weren't able to go as far as them based on speaking to planning. So, once you see the summary of all the documents, these drawings show the proposed development in relation to its surroundings and typically include site plans, floor plans, elevations and section drawings. Planning permission drawings are used to demonstrate how the proposed development will fit into the existing environment and comply with local planning policies, as I mentioned earlier on, I think, in this video. So let's quickly flip over and have a look at the building control ground floor drawings. So just to be clear, this calls out the proposed. So obviously this is the end state. And on the left hand side, what we have is the groundworks plan. And then on the right hand side, we have the actual ground floor plan as to what it looks like. So almost on the left hand side is everything we got to do from a manual label perspective in terms of digging and moving things around. And on the right hand side is kind of like the finishes and what everything's going to look like internally. And all the blues and the blacks in there all reference things from different drawings. So obviously you need to see all of them to understand it fully, but you can kind of get the gist of it just by looking at this here. But I hope this helps those differentiate between, the planning permission drawings and building control drawings. It's a very small subset, but now you imagine times 30 documents, 15 for each, you can kind of see how much, this is potentially going to cost you, and how much you need to manage in terms of paperwork. And if you are going to be self-building this, you're going to have to be, in control of all these documents, making sure that, you're in a good position to start work. And also what it does enable you to do is it allows you to just send these out directly to tender. So I hope that gives you a general gist. If you've got any questions, pop them down in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer. So next Sunday at 6 o'clock, what we're going to be doing is looking at part 3 of this building control phase and going in through each step in a high level detail as to what milestones are required for building control to get your completion certificate at the end.